Afternoon, guys. This is a podcast focusing on questioning, particularly on participation ratio that we're going to look at today. My name's James Bedwell, Curriculum Manager for Sport and Teaching and Learning Coach.
And my name's Dave Rowland, I'm Teaching and Learning Coach and Teacher of Sport and PE.
Perfect. So, plan for today is, like I said, to look at participation ratio. Dave and I are going to discuss some of our, top strategies, bits that we've picked up on recently in our green light classrooms, bits that we've maybe used and implemented in our lessons as well, and then we'll finish with our go-to top strategy. So for me, Dave, I'm going to start off with a no hands up policy within my classrooms. I think that's absolutely critical to stop the same student hands up, giving the same answer or even shouting the answer out before some of the students that need a little bit more thinking time can actually think and respond for themselves. So for me, that's something that's absolutely fundamental within all of my teaching, regardless of who I'm teaching, year 1 to year 2, what level, etc. So that's where I'm going to start off with. What else, sort of, from your point of view, would you be using on a daily basis?
Yeah, I completely agree with that, with the no hands up. Another one that I use quite often that sort of links to that is getting students to select other students to question. So no hands up policy to start with, I might select the first student, and then after that it's, right, can you pick someone else, can you pick someone else, and whether that's to build onto the same question to expand the answer, or if it's sort of a list questioning, right, can somebody else give me another example, but the students are the ones that are selecting the next person.
Yeah, I really like that, because in that sense, everyone's accountable for generating an answer. Like you say, you'll pick the first person, but everyone's then sort of accountable and thinking, oh, well, especially if he's my friend, it might be that he or she picks me to go next, so I definitely need to prepare another answer or several answers in case I'm picked next. I also like that one because it, I think, enable students to sort of be confident in terms of going, yeah, go on then, pick me, because I've got a clever answer and I want to share it off, and then I want the power to pick the next person as well. Only thing I sort of note with that is I make a rule of that they can't pick the person that picked them, so they can't go back to the same person. But yeah, definitely like that. I think another thing that I think we've seen standard across our practice and across the green light classrooms and forums is quite a simple one, but in terms of the framing of questions. And what I mean by that is ultimately asking the question first, pausing for a few seconds like I've done there, and then introducing the name. Yeah. So it might be, in physiology, if it's a simple identify question, identify the site of aerobic respiration, and in that sense I'm sort of actively moving around the classroom, giving a bit of thinking time. Dave, what's your thoughts? And in that sort of pause, all students there are sort of actively thinking or have the chance to think, rather than me saying, Dave, because as soon as I introduce your name first, lots of students then switch off and go, oh, phew, James hasn't picked me. So I think that's quite important. And like I said, sort of link that in with the think time and making sure that students have, we've sort of argued 10 seconds of sort of thinking time, but I guess that depends on the depth of the question. A more difficult question where they might need to link and to previous content might require like 30 seconds thinking time, but giving suitable amounts of time for everybody in the class to sort of actively think, maybe note something down on their whiteboard, and then accountability again for us to cold call. So I think those two sort of link quite nicely together.
Yeah, good stuff. And that sort of leads on to my next one, which is a sort of extension of the first one I came up with, which is, rather than the students generating the next person to answer the question, it's using sort of random techniques and methods to come up with the next person to answer. So a few ways that I've done that is I'd ask the first person the question, and then ask them to give me a number between 1 and 5, and then I'd count that many people along the rows in the classroom. So all the students are sort of on their toes. They've come up with an answer already during that that bit of think time previously and the no hands up sort of policies that you've explained. But they know that there's a chance that the student could pick them, but it's slightly more randomised. Other ones I quite like are things like asking a student what their shoe size is, and a little bit of humour, and they're sort of taken aback by it to start with. They might say a 7, and then you'll count 7 people along, and you can be clever with that as well. So you might want to ask a person from a certain side of the room, or you might go, actually, I want to ask someone in the row behind, so I'll count 2 and then go back for the next 5 to get to the student that I want to. Another method with that is using sort of wheel of names or random name generator apps and things like that. So again, they've all got to answer, they've all got to come up with something, and it randomises who's being selected for that question. Like
that, and again, that just increases that accountability of students thinking, well, it genuinely could be me at any stage using any of those sort of, I guess, random name generators, whether it's, like you say, one that you've created, keeping students on their toes, or something they can see on the screen, like the Wheel of Fortune as such. Okay, so I guess one of the sort of follow-ons, which I guess extends some of the strategies we've looked at already, is this idea of turn and talk. And I guess it's good to see around our college here now, and I think within our department particularly, we see that phrase turn and talk. So it's not, see what your buddy thinks or whatever, but we use that key phrase of turn and talk, and students, I guess, find it now a habit, even though we're only a couple months into, or 3 months into the course. They find it a habit of turn and talk means they actively need to discuss with the person next to them, even if there's a person absent, even if it's someone they don't particularly socialise with. They know that they're expected to turn and talk and to generate discussion answers to then feed back to the group, and that easily translates into like a think, pair, share scenario, which we've probably all come across before. But that turn and talk again generates that accountability. After 30 seconds of you turning and talking on this topic or content, I'm going to pick a random pair to feed back to the group. So it's a real, real easy one, but allows everyone to think and have that accountability as well.
Yeah, sure, good stuff. And I think that moves on to my sort of next one, which is using a method of row questioning, but that might be individually or it might be as a pair. So it could start with, okay, turn and talk to your partner for 30 seconds, however long it is, to come up with some ideas, but then throughout the lesson I'm going to work across each row so that you know that either if it's an individual task, individually you'll be questioned, or if it's a paired task, your pair will have to provide an answer at some point throughout the questioning. One of the groups that I use that a lot with is my level 2 group, my level 2 certificate in coaching, because they're a little bit more reluctant to offer to answer questions initially, and also some of them lack that confidence to turn and talk to somebody. But through continually practicing that, and then they know that, okay, within the next 10 minutes, within this task, I'm going to have to come up with something, I'm going to have to answer, but I can see that it's going to be 3 people away, so I've got a little bit of time to prepare myself. Okay, that's my best idea, I'm going to use that one. And I always say to them, like, come up with a few ideas in case your one's already shared, etc. That's
good.
And yeah, I think that's one at the start of the year with that group. I'd have sort of 50% of the students want to sit next to each other, but really just to chat and socialise. And the other 50%, if you gave them the option, they would rather sit completely on their own at the end of a row and not talk to anyone for the whole lesson. So it's taken a little bit of work where they now know when they come in, they need to go and sit next to somebody at the start of the lesson, because they're going to have to share, they're going to have to turn and talk at some point, and throughout the lesson they're all going to have to provide an answer. And it's really improved the sort of the engagement and the participation rates in questioning and in some of the quality of ideas that they come up with as a group.
Yeah, that's good. So what you're saying is that might be a particularly good or useful strategy for maybe those sort of quieter groups, shyer groups, more introverted sort of students, or ones where they potentially don't know each other.
Yeah, definitely.
Probably better at the beginning of the year, because it just allows a little bit more sort of predictability of when they're going to answer. Okay. Is that something that you would still use with your level 3 groups, or is that something you just primarily use with the level 2s?
No, I'd use it with both. I think with the level 3s, if it was say it was a new, I teach predominantly second years with level 3, so maybe at the start of term where they don't know me and I don't know them so well, and there might be a bit of a mixture from their first year BTEC classes that actually, okay, sit next to somebody, turn and talk, we're going to be sharing, but you've got a little bit of time and you know that you're not going to answer for 3 or 4 people. And then as the confidence grows, I'd then throw a few more things in around randomised questioning and picking each other and stuff like that. But yeah, it's I think, like you said, it depends on how well you know the group, how well the group know each other, how introverted they are, and sort of how early you can get those questioning methods in to just increase the engagement.
But equally, something I've just picked up on, like you said at the beginning of the year, I think using all of these strategies, because we're cold calling, helps for the teacher to get to know the students as well, because you're almost putting yourself under pressure to learn some names and to get to know the group, rather than you just asking a question and just accepting any answer from and potentially that's going to be the same person every time. Okay, so quite a few strategies that we've sort of looked at, discussed. If I then put you under pressure and said, what was your top go-to that you're going to use in every lesson, and maybe now you wouldn't go without, which of those would you be putting as your absolute go-to?
I'd probably say the pick the next person one, and I think with that, as you alluded to earlier, it's being quite sort of specific, or putting maybe conditions on it once you've used it a few times. But it's one that as soon as I'm going to pick someone to start with who I think either might be able to give the class a good answer, or actually I want to challenge somebody who I'm not sure if they're quite sure on the answer, but I want them to have a go at it, and then for them to maybe have an attempt at the answer, but can they pick someone that's going to build on the answer, extend it, or maybe even challenge them and give an alternative opinion. But then, like you said earlier, it's okay, you can't pick each other again, or next time I come to you, you need to pick someone from the row in front or the row behind, or pick someone to your left or your right, etc.
And I think that's important, because traditionally students will pick their buddy, or maybe think they're stitching them up, and it sort of goes along the line. But like you say, if you go, right, this time pick someone from the back row, pick someone from the front row, pick someone from your left hand side, right hand side, it's just an easy way to make sure it's still increasing that participation ratio.
And I think, like you said, especially early on with groups, it's that you're getting to know them, but they need to get to know each other as well, and that's that sort of accountability of, come on, you're in a class with these sort of 15, 20 people, you need to learn each other's names, you need to be confident enough to question each other, challenge each other, have conversations with each other throughout the year. Yeah,
love that, and that sort of links into what we've had a focus on at the beginning of the year in terms of making an effective start, knowing your students, getting the students to know each other, etc. Okay, if I had to go for my top strategy, I think, tough one, because they all sort of interlink somewhat, but I think I'd have to use the no hands up sort of policy, because for me that then means you get to cold call, you can use your thinking time, it enables you basically to roll out all of these other strategies without the same person hands up, and calling out answers when you want to check on, like you say, I'm going to really challenge this student now, I'm going to start with this student and build the challenge over time. So I think that's absolutely critical. But at the same time, if I do throw out a question which I think is particularly difficult or challenging, I might ask students to then actually sort of put their hand up to show me how many people think they've got a confident answer, but not on a standard sort of question or throughout the lesson, but I might say, guys, this is really difficult, we're going to try and link this topic or this answer to something we did last month. So extension question, give them the question with the thinking time, maybe a turn and talk, and then I might say, okay, show me now if you, on your hands, if you think you've got a clever answer. So that's the only time I might break my rules, and then I would narrate and say, okay, Dave's got an answer, Derek's got an answer, Yaz has got an answer, and I'd start to sort of narrate that, and then more people might put their hands up, and then it's me then cold calling and picking someone I think sort of at that level. So yeah, for me that would be my absolute go-to, and one that I can't sort of teach without. So
what's quite nice with that, what you're saying, where you then throw the hands up back in every so often, you can see the students that at the start of the year are like itching to put their hands up and almost having to sit on their hands. They then suddenly go, oh, brilliant! I can sort of share my extended knowledge that some of the other class might not have.
Chance to show off. In some cases, go, pick me. Cool. So. Quite a nice summary of different strategies, like we said, that we're implementing around college, and some that we've picked up on as well within some of our green light classrooms here at Itchen College as well. So that brings us to an end. Thanks for your time today, Dave, and hopefully those strategies are useful for you to implement within your own practice as well.
Brilliant. Thanks, James.